Lots, 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 lots.
Very true.
Yeah. So celebrate your changes of being, please. Don't forget. It's very important. We want to lock in that habit to continually be looking at, hey, I've changed my progression. This is where I'm at now. This is what I'm thankful for. This is what I want to be at now. Constantly re-emphasizing that until it becomes our new default. Yeah.
Okay.
And then feedback and understanding exercise. You have to do for very long, as well, however long as appropriate. But give it at least time so that you can immerse into the insides of your being a little bit, that you can really feel what's going on and cognize and be aware. And yeah, so yeah, very cool,
Okay.
very cool,
All right.
very cool, fantastic.
Well, I will talk to you later on.
Oh, yeah.
All right, fantastic. Bye bye, okay. Bye bye, bye bye.
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 Very cool, very cool. Oh, that reminds me. I got a missive. I got an angel. I got a delivery from an angel.
Yay! Awesome.
Yes, yay, thank you. I was using it on my arm at first. I'm like, oh, this thing doesn't work because I don't have particularly lots of hair, but it was affecting the suction. So I just remembered other things with suction, and I just licked the spot, and then it works really well. So yeah, so if you have a spot with a little bit of too much hair because it didn't work, and then also it made it where as I pulled it up, it didn't kind of get locked at the top. So I could pump it a couple of times, and it like really sucked like crazy, left a big red spot there. All right.
Oh, that's funny.
That's very cool.
Did you see that you can take the bottom piece off and turn it around so it's got
a more focus?
Right.
I did not see that, and I was wondering about that. I need this for my fingers. Yes, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to use it on my fingers. Yeah. All right. Oh, I'm gonna use this instead. Yeah, I don't need the big one. I need the focused one. Yeah. Oh, good. Thanks for telling me. I was wondering about that. Okay. I got it today. I didn't get a chance yesterday. I got all involved, and it's all Beena's fault, of course. So
okay. Well, was the post office even open yesterday? It probably wasn't, right?
Monday. Oh, that's right. It was public holiday. Oh, I'm glad I didn't go Monday. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm inside my own bubble. So yeah.
It would have been closed anyway. So there
exactly.
you go.
Exactly. Now Beena's reading the story to me, Sophie's World, and I'm so loving it. I'm enjoying it. It's such a treat, So I got all immersed in that. So Beena had to go today, which is why I remembered Beena when you had to go and do whatever it was. I'm going to sneak up to the post office really quickly. So it worked out.
Okay, I'm not reading this story to him. It is actually, I was just saying that it is an experience. It is not just a story. It is an experience because for hours we are discussing and all the side stories and the history and all the references are coming from him.
Actually,
it happens like just a one-line read and for hours of discussion on that.
Wow! I really wish it would be able to join us on this. It would be fantastic.
Oh my God, it is an experience.
So fun.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I have never read it, so I'll have to add it.
Well, it's a particular book that is very overlapping somewhat with me. I mean, he starts off and he's going through explaining the history of philosophy, Western philosophy in particular. And, he starts with Socrates, and then he moves on, or even before Socrates, Democritus and all these guys. And so he goes and explains it. And, and then he moves on through it all. And of course, I've done the same thing, maybe a little bit more extensive than what he's explained. But sometimes he'll say stuff, and I'm like, okay, and then I can add a little bit more, and we can go sideways and look at it. And so at least, and so it's a whole different perspective. Now, I don't particularly regard myself as the kind of philosopher that he is, or at least, I don't care for that because I'm not interested in really remembering stuff, but in context, I remember it. I want the real learning. I couldn't be bothered with remembering what they said, so. But anyway, it makes for very simple things. Like, what was the last thing he said? One of the things he said about our reason tells us that there has to be a
God exists.
Some God. No, the cause of things. Everything has to have a primal cause or reason.
Yes, formal.
Formal. That's right. It says reason tells us that everything in the world has to have a formal cause. This is the statement of the philosopher in the book to Sophie. And I said, yes, that's absolutely true. And that cause is randomness.
Mm.
Go, I'm going to start a new religion. Say, oh, my creator is random. My God is called random.
I like
So
it.
anyway, just to give you an example of, it's stuff that gets easily missed because there is in that philosophical thinking, which is why I don't care for it too much. They tend to assume a lot of stuff like this.
Mm.
That, okay, there has to be a formal cause. Well, if there has to be a formal cause, well, and it's now a justification for the existence of God. They always come back to this. They're hell bent on proving their points. And they never
Yes.
open to alternatives. And they say, well, maybe as far as I know, my best guess is. They never say stuff like this.
Right.
So it's very, very instructive as a mechanism for exploring application of the entire toolbox of way of impeccability.
Mm-hmm.
Way of impeccability is not a philosophy. Some might say it is.
Right.
But it is actually a toolbox that enables you, the participant, to create your own philosophy.
Right. Right.
Not only your philosophy, but also tools of living. So it's the toolbox that's a tool creating toolbox. And that's really different, So when we think of it in that context, it's very, very, very revolutionary, So a lot of this. Anyway, I saw a lot of these philosophical problems that they had, and it always bugged me because, they never resolved them.
Right.
Think it through to the end till you resolve it. They're not all that difficult to resolve, for heaven's sake,
Right.
So, yeah. Like the scientific thing with the Big Bang Theory, science says nothing can come out of nothing, right? You cannot destroy energy. How does your Big Bang work again now?
Right.
I never could understand how scientists could claim the Big Bang Theory when at the same breath they're saying nothing can come out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing can come out of nothing to me, logically, the universe had to exist for infinity backwards in time. It's like,
Right.
just
Right.
had to be. So nonsense with your Big Bang that it came out of nothing. No, has to have come out of something. So therefore, that exists forever. So who
True.
knows? Yeah. Just fascinating. So very funny.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
By the way, in the rest of the world, Cherokee is kind of a little bit of a joke.
Oh yeah.
And not that the Cherokees themselves, but Americans, like every American is in some way related to a Cherokee. It's like a bit of an amusing thing, that people don't take it for real. It's like a claim to fame, Actually, the joke is really like everybody's got a Cherokee princess in their heritage somewhere.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I heard that before I came here, and I've actually heard this quite a few times.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. It's very funny. And I almost never hear somebody say they have any other heritage in them.
Really?
Very seldom do I hear that. Occasionally, I mean, unless it's really obvious. But I'm saying people who look fully Western, right? They never say I've got Apache or Sioux or some whatever. There's some really obscure tribes out there. I never hear people claim those. Maybe sometimes they will say Apache a little bit, or even Navajo. I almost very seldom hear, and Navajo is the biggest thing. But how often have you heard, somebody who looks completely Western that say, "Oh, I've got a Navajo ancestor."
Right. I think it was more common for the civilized tribes to intermingle with white people, so it makes sense. But
so I mean, you would just think the Navajo Nation being the biggest, you'd think there'd be a lot of intermingling, So
right, you never know.
I don't know. I just find it interesting. So you never know. You never know. But I suspect somehow that something with the Cherokee tribe that they sort of dispersed and mingled in general. Is that what happened with them? Why they so maybe more so?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. I just find it really interesting. And how did the T-shirt come about? Because they have their original home was in Oklahoma, right? If I understand it. Right?
Well, not original. Their original home was on the East Coast, and they got removed to Oklahoma during the removal.
Did they first get removed to Florida and then from there to Oklahoma?
I'm not sure. It's possible, but so it's, I think, Tahlequah. Is it Tahlequah where the Cherokees are? It must be Tahlequah in Oklahoma. Is, I think it's either Cherokee or Choctaw, but does it say?
Right.
I don't know.
It says Cherokee Nation. I can't read what's on the circle.
I don't know.
It says Cherokee Nation big across the top.
I think it's Tahlequah that there is a concentration of Cherokee population. There's a lot of like educational things to do with the Cherokee tribe in Tahlequah. And we went there when I was a kid, and
Cool.
my mom and grandma took me, and we were like, you know, reading all the stuff about the tribe and all these different things. And so this shirt is probably, oh gosh, over 20 years old. Probably.
Wow, it looks fresh for 20 years.
I know,
Wow, that's remarkable.
a really long
Wow.
time. But yeah, it was a really fun trip, and we went and learned about the Cherokee tribe and everything. Legend has it that we have Cherokee, so I have some minute amount of Cherokee in me. But my family's history with Native American tribes is kind of interesting. We supposedly, so I think Cherokee and Chickasaw on my grandma's side by blood, a very small amount. The people, this is an interesting story. The people on my grandma's side that were actually Native American, I think it was Cherokee, thank you, Bandit, and Chickasaw, their last name was Spruce. So fairly obvious that, okay, Bandit, come on. Fairly obvious that they were Native American, and they lived in Georgia they actually came to Texas on their own just prior to the removal.
Wow.
And then went up to Oklahoma, but they were in Georgia at the time, and that was when the government was going around having all Native Americans sign up on the rolls, like register as Native American. And they didn't want to, because they didn't want to be discriminated against, even though it was very obvious that they were Native American. So they didn't sign up on the rolls.
Wow.
So we have no official like claim to any Native American blood, except the Choctaw tribe, which is an interesting one, because also on my grandma's side, someone who was not part of that part of the family, he was not Native American as far as we know at all. He married his third wife was a member of she was actually Native American. She was a member of the Choctaw tribe, and he got adopted.
Wow, interesting.
He actually, so our family that was actually Native American, because they didn't sign up on the rolls, got nothing. And then the government started handing stuff out, right? The guy who was not Native American at all, he was adopted into the Choctaw tribe. He actually received the plots of land. So he got like 160 acres.
That's a lot.
Down in Grady County. It went to all, he had a bunch of kids. It went to all these different kids. And what's left of it now is 40 acres that my grandma owned part of. And then it was like she had part of it. So my grandma's mom was one of 12 children.
Wow.
And they all got part of this land, okay? So it was like 40 acres split amongst all these different siblings.
Wow.
And they all died off, and it kind of got consolidated a little bit. So my grandma owned the largest chunk, but then some of her cousins still own parts of it. So the deed to the land is a complete nightmare. It's like this third of an acre belongs to this person. And
that's terrible. Yeah.
It's a total nightmare, but it was made worse because there's oil under that land. And so all of these landmen are always contacting people. My grandma actually got royalties off of it for a while.
Wow.
So that whole thing became this huge deal of like, how do we divvy up who gets what? It was this huge nightmare.
Wow.
And then he also got some other plot of land in Chickasha, which is where my grandma's family was from, and he gave it to the city when he died, and they turned it into a cemetery, and my family got all of these free burial plots.
Wow, wow. So when your grandma died, did Kay inherit it?
She inherited the whatever amount of the 48
the mess. Yeah.
Yes, she did.
Wow.
But yeah, like my grandma, my uncle, both of my uncles, and I forget how many other people are all buried like for free out in this cemetery.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Like what a weird thing. Yeah, what a weird thing.
That's fascinating. Wow.
But and then supposedly, I don't know the whole story, but supposedly we do have Plains tribes, like the ones that nobody ever claims. We have.
There you go.
We have Plains tribes on my grandpa's side, but also,
interesting.
Again, like minuscule.
Minuscule.
The
you know, everybody's got some blood of everybody in them.
Yes. So, I did the DNA thing a couple years
ago.
ago.
Oh, you did? Oh, so you actually know for sure.
It was really interesting because it said, I mean, as expected, it was like 98%, you know, European.
Yeah.
But
from where in Europe specifically?
It did. I don't think it specified. It just.
Oh, nowadays they specify the country.
Yeah, I don't think it specified.
Interesting.
I know that I'm half Belgian, so
there you go.
Large portion of it comes from Belgium. And then I think the rest is just English and probably little bits of Irish, because I know there was some Irish on my grandpa's side, or actually my grandma's dad's side. But what was interesting to me was I knew that I had some, you know, tiny amount of Native American, and I forget what the percentage was, but you know, I mean, it was like
1 or 2%.
Yeah, it was a smidge. But at the same amount, it said I had North African.
Wow. No. That makes sense, likely. Because at some point, some of your European ancestors were probably, you know, on a ship sailing somewhere, and they got captured by the pirates in North Africa, and that mingled in there.
Possible. It's very possible. But yeah, that was really interesting. I had no idea. So
wow. So you've got from 3 continents.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. Directly from 3 continents. Wow. North African. Wow. Yeah, I'm African American, of course.
There you go. You are. It's true.
I am. I'm actually more African than, at least more South African than some, you know, because I'm 17th generation, so, you know.
Wow, that's a long.
I'm African through and through.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's the fun part with apartheid, you know, the Afrikaners who speak that kitchen Dutch, the language they call Afrikaans. But, you know, it's pronounced Afrikaans, and they call themselves Afrikaners, and it's just Africans. It's just in Dutch to say Africans.
Right.
It's just fascinating that they call themselves Africans, because they'd been there so many generations already, and eventually they said, okay. Yeah. It's just the irony of it. Tickles me no end, you know. So, wow, that's really fascinating. That's really cool to know. You know, I saw somewhere that they said you can take any 2 people in the world, and on average you can connect them within 6 jumps.
Right.
Yeah, and I thought that's, you know, 6 degrees of separation. And that might even be the origin of that, you know, that any 2 people, if you go, you know, 6 jumps, you can connect. I thought that's pretty amazing, you know. So
interesting. Yeah,
that really makes you think, you know, that we like this idea of thinking separation and all this. We're all the same underneath. You know what really fascinates me though? Go anywhere in the world and talk to a cat lover, or get them on Zoom, you know, while they got their cat in front of them. What do? They do exactly what you're doing now, same thing. They do the same thing. I don't care where you are in the world, they do exactly the same thing. Go to a farmer and walk with him out onto the land and have him show you his lands. What do? They pick up the soil and they run it through their fan. Like every single farmer everywhere in the world, they do that exact same thing, you know.
True.
So, you know, for doctors, they all have the same care. Okay, the poor sick, you know, people are the same when you look at them in the sense of what their passion is, and they all become the same. It's amazing. It's amazing. So when we, and it doesn't matter what race or creed, you know, when you're passionate, you do the same stuff. So it's fascinating to me. You know, that's a very quick way to overcome differences.
Right.
connect people through their passion, and they very quickly lose that, you know. So yeah, like this Muslim fellow that I know and this Trump supporter that I know, who are both avid fishermen, and they
Interesting.
connect, and they connect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just amazing, you know. So you know, it's amazing. Okay, he's not a particularly radical Muslim, but still he's a very unradical Muslim, right, Beena? So anyway, it's just fascinating, fascinating. Unlikely connections through passion. It's
Right.
amazing. It's amazing, you know. So I like this in the modern world with the internet. This is what happens, you know. People get more together because of their
Mhm.
passions, and that's it, you know. Then they start to see, hey, you know what? The guy on the other end of the world is playing the same game as me. He likes it the same way, you know. It's the same interest, and especially with lonely people, they're all happy to friend anybody who's got similar things. And there are a lot of lonely people in the world, you know. So
True.
yeah, yeah. I mean, people who live in true isolation, you know, it's quite horrifying, actually.
Yeah.
It's
True.
amazing. Yeah, sad business. All right, where we at, Erica Jane? Housekeeping. And we have housekeeping stuff, tasks, things that we had to do.
The only thing I remember was you mentioning the standing thing.
Yes,
Not
yes.
have not done yet. I
All
keep
right.
doing
Yeah.
yoga when I have my free time because
Oh, good.
I
Okay. Do it.
really need to be stretching.
Good, good. Do it as part of a unit. I mean, literally do the standing just for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, doesn't matter. And do it with your eyes closed, practicing standing, emphasis on figurative, literal. That's it.
Okay,
Just that, just that. And then record what goes on inside you when you're practicing this too.
I
Yeah,
can do that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, even if it's for a few minutes, doesn't matter, as part of your yoga.
Right.
It'd be actually kind of cool to do, to see how it is to do before and after, which one
Mhm.
has more effect. Because
Yeah.
I definitely do feel that if you did it after, you likely are going to get a much different result than before.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and the other thing is when you're really tired, actually, those few minutes before going to sleep, almost do it and kind of fall asleep on your feet a little bit. It's also
Mhm.
quite profound. Because you know your body's very relaxed and it's tired and it's heavy and there's a lot of different stuff going on that you're not normally aware of.
Right.
So that's also a good time to do it. Other times to do it is you know, instead of kettle dancing, you know, practice standing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kettle dancing.
yeah, that's what I call it when I wait for the kettle. You know.
I like it. I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah. It's just filling in dead time. You know.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, same for the microwave. Whenever you're waiting for something,
Right.
just
Right.
close your eyes and practice standing for those few seconds. You know,
Instead
it doesn't have to be that long. Say again?
instead of waiting for the pot to boil, just
Exactly. Use that time constructively. Right, right. You know, I used to read at least one book a day just from doing that as a kid. In
mm,
those dead times, I did a lot of stuff as a kid. You know, I was very active and very busy. I didn't just spend all my time reading, but every dead second I would read. So
mm-hmm.
I ended up, you know, one year I read 2 books a day just from that. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah, lots of dead time in the day. You'll be astonished, you know. Well, I sort of I started to think about death when I was 11. I still remember where I was too, and my end thinking things through. I didn't want to be focused on death, and so I shifted that to the preciousness of time. So
Mm-hmm.
from that moment, every second in my life became precious and valuable, and I sought to fill that second with something valuable. So
Yeah.
I literally would sometimes, you know, you waiting, you read, and you're reading just one sentence. I don't care, you know, you keep going through the day, that adds up, you know. It's amazing the accumulation of minutia. So I really, really like to multitask for the same reason. Use my time effectively. It's
Right.
very powerful, very powerful. So yeah, be amazed how much we can do when we use every second. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
incredible. Yeah, it changes your perception of time too, which is nice. Very cool way to live. You know, to start living by the minute, by the second. Very empowering, very
Yeah.
empowering. All right, all right. Where were we? Where were we? Keen to
All
get
right.
going. All right. And just in general, I was saying to Kay the same thing. You know, to celebrate our changes. It's very
Yeah.
important. It's very important. Did we talk about habit and right and wrong?
I'm not sure.
Where I was saying that stirring your coffee Which way do you stir?
Oh, right, like
Okay.
to do it with your left hand or whatever.
Right. Well, no, just okay, just in general. Yeah, that's part of the habits breaking thing. But if you do stir your coffee with like the spoon facing, with the hollow side toward you, is the way most people stir their coffee. Just flip that around and stir your tea or your coffee, and see how it feels. Now, to
Right.
most people, when they do that, they say, "Oh, this feels wrong." Huh? Based on what?
Right.
You're stirring your coffee. And particularly why I like to use the stirring example, because in the actual application of it makes zero difference.
Right.
None. It's the exact same effect. Or clockwise, counterclockwise, either way. But they'll say this feels all wrong. Based on what? Purely habit. So when we start to really think this through, we say, oh my goodness, holy moly, this is disastrous. This is horrible. My morality can be influenced by habit.
True.
How ridiculous is that?
Yeah, true.
This is a very big deal. So we take that to its extension. We say, the reason that you said it was wrong is because it feels wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That feeling is simply based on habit, which is now connected, obviously, to comfort.
Right.
We cannot have our sense of right and wrong, our morality, in other words, and by extension, our ethics, be dependent on such trivial things, like our comfort zone, like our habit. Yeah?
True.
This is a horrifying thought. Now, look at conservatism.
I'm writing this down.
In the same context. Yeah, go ahead. This is a very big deal. A very profound big deal. Oh, I like that thinking. I like that.
This reminds me too of one of the questions that I was going over last night from module 8 about not, and I mean, certainly habit is part of it, but also just something feeling wrong because it goes against whatever is accepted. Why do I feel this is wrong? Is it just because everyone else has told me I'm supposed to do it this way, or what's
habit again? Habit, conditioning, reflex. There's all sorts of reasons. So again, the last part I was wanting to add on to that was to say, when we look at conservatism and its connection to right and wrong and morality and how they get all bent out of shape, it is precisely one of the real profound reasons, is this comfort with newness. Anything that's new and different, it's wrong.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
It's so simple. It's so simple, just being out of their comfort zone. It's a horrible thing, but it's very profound to understand in ourselves, to say, hey, if I am going to decide right and wrong, based on bloody what? Yeah, very important. Furthermore, there's the other implication that we have to really carefully look at our feelings. When we feel something is right, that doesn't make it right.
Right.
So we have to be very careful with our feelings. Now, in the beginning of Way of Impeccability, said we want to feel our things to make it real. Yes?
Right.
All right. So we want to put all of this together now, yes?
Okay.
All right. So this is the key here now. When we feel it, it makes it real. So if we are feeling something based on false criteria, we can make something that is unreal real, and in this case of right and wrong, we can now say something is wrong or right based on our feelings when this has got nothing to do with it. So we have to use our logic, our sensibility, our reason, our thinking it through to the end first, and then feel it, not the reverse. Yeah. So so this is very important to be aware of. So we want to feel deliberately. but that deliberation has to be based on impeccability.
Right.
Otherwise, you can end up with very squirrely morality.
True.
Just fascinates me.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, there's one other. Okay, when you're done. When you're done.
Okay.
Okay, one other big point that came up, and I don't know how much we spoke about it. Maybe we didn't. I don't know. But anyway, so this is an understanding that as we progress on our path of learning and growing, the more we progress on that path, we actually end up with an inverse problem. Right. And this is the problem, that as we grow into our real self, our more self, right? However you want to define that. I try not to say higher self because I don't care for the hierarchy part of it. So our real self, our more self, our genuine self, our spiritual self, whatever you want to call it. The more we do that, just by doing that, simply that replacement, automatically, proportionately shrinks the ego. The ego used to be capital I, used to be king of the pops, right? Now it suddenly becomes little I, and it becomes little teeny, and it just goes smaller, smaller, smaller. So at a certain point in our progression, when that little I realizes, hey, I used to be captain of the starship, and then I was a commander, and then I was a lieutenant, and then I was a steersman, and now I'm just a crew member, and next thing I won't even be on the ship anymore. They're getting ready to space me here, put me in the airlock. Right? So what happens is the little I starts to panic. And what does a beer man do when they panic? You know, what did Phil do when he was panicking? When he was threatened, when his existence in this facade was threatened, he had major tantrums, right? And he not only had tantrums, but he got very subversive and spiteful and nasty and destructive and vindictive. And he looked to just bring everything down around him, right? So that he was happy to make chaos where everybody's flattened down to nothing, and he's just this little bit bigger than them, right? So what I'm trying to say is that as that little I starts to panic, it starts to sabotage. And we start to do idiotic, stupid things that, like, where the hell did that come from? It's little I panicking because it's fearing it's being, just by its existence is threatened. It's shrinking into existence, right? And that is what tends to happen. Now, in most spiritual traditions, they say, keep going on your spiritual path, and at some point, your old self, this I, the ego, surrenders and goes away. Right? However, it may go kicking and screaming and cause lots of trouble. Right? My friend Connie actually has a book and runs a whole course and program for dealing with an increase in stress and anxiety and all sorts of hassles as a consequence of your spiritual progression. That's very cool, very cool. But now she writes it in a different way, though, and okay, but still, it's more or less the same thing. We just focused on this automatic shrinkage of the ego, which we are doing through our impeccability, our sensibility, our sobriety, all of this stuff. But to be aware that it causes a trouble, and it can really influence you, and it can leverage your subconscious to bring up kind of negative thoughts, spitefulness, whatever, any sort of sabotage to cause trouble. All right, so we want to take this one step further, even go all the way to the end, and bring in something that's really massive. And it is somewhere in the program, but I want to just emphasize it. And this is capital L, laughter. We really want to have laughter in our dictionary of power as a profound tool, right? And we're talking about real laughter, real, true, pure laughter.
Right.
In other words, this laughter has no denigration in it, no mockery, no derision, no demeaningness in it, nothing, right? None of those horrible D's in there.
Right.
So it is just pure laughter at the folly and the ridiculousness of things. We want to not only learn to laugh at the folly of the world, like, in other words, we really need to develop the ability to laugh at Trump in this pure way. I mean, in one way, he's just a fantastic comedy show, right?
Right.
We can't let the seriousness of what he does impact us. We need to laugh at him. There's a video of this guy in the airport, and there's two Trump supporters have got this ridiculous sign. I mean, just one of those that, oxymoronic things that's, anyway. And he just starts laughing, and he can't help it. He's not laughing at them, he's laughing at the folly of it. And he just laughs and laughs, and he can't stop. And it went viral, and it's a big thing. It's very cool to see. I really hope that some supporter one day when Trump comes with his nonsense just starts to get the giggles and, everybody starts laughing eventually.
Right.
It will implode Trump.
Yeah.
Now, what happens when you laugh in this way at the BMN? What do they
They get really frustrated.
But when it's a pure laughter, eventually they usually go, and they sort of end up laughing with you, right? Because they know they can't rail against it. Like if it was a mocking, denigrating laughter, say, oh, you're mocking me, you're being nasty, and they'll point out to you, you're supposed to be good, you shouldn't be judging people, all this. But if it's a pure laughter, none of those arguments will work. He's going to look the idiot for bringing that up, right? Because I'm just laughing at the folly of it. So he cannot uh, rail against it or remonstrate against it or start arguing against it. All he can do is essentially surrender and laugh with me, even though he might be a little bit lame at first. Because I don't know if you've seen this, like with kids, I saw this plenty, where they come tell some nonsense story and all the kids laughed, and they didn't realize that the kid is trying to BS them. They just thought the kid was telling a funny story, and the kid pretends as if they did. When they click what's happened, that their BS didn't work. They always start with that, yeah, and then, yeah, laugh, telling it, and they kind of spin it. In other words, what they do is they surrender. That's the point that I'm making. In the face of true laughter and BS and ego and nonsense and narcissism and all of the stuff, the superiority paradigm, in other words, it can only surrender in the face of real, true, pure laughter.
Right.
Because it's ridiculous. It collapses. And you are now focusing on the absurdity and the ridiculousness of it. And that's it. Nothing else. There's no judgment. There's no right, wrong, nothing. You just say, wow, this is ridiculous. And then it collapses. So when we learn to do this with that little I in self, that's how we get it to get rid of. That's how we get it to surrender. Yeah. So there's a lot in that. It's a very powerful conception. And just actually deliberately practicing laughing at the folly of the world.
Right.
And also laughing for no reason at all.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievably powerful practice. It's up there with any of these particular practical applications. Just out of the blue, just learn to laugh for no reason.
Right.
Very, very powerful. And laughing at our own nonsense. Donna's so magical at this. She's really taking this exercise to heart, and she's really applying it in a most profound way, right, Beena? It's so fantastic. It's really, really cool. So yeah. So when Donna comes on again with us, pay attention. So hopefully she'll come on Friday. Was she here this last Friday?
Mm-hmm.
She was. So I don't know how much you got to interact and laugh, but anyway, it's really powerful. It's really magical. So it's a good thing to practice this deliberate, pure laughter. Incredibly empowering. Plus, two, the laughter is a good energy check, an energy gauge. If you're finding it hard to laugh, time to go sleep.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, or rest, or chill, or unengage, right? Okay. All right. Very cool stuff, Erica. Very cool stuff. And also, that's what I started to say, and I never got there. I wanted to say, celebrating your changes of being. Make this part of your daily practice. Yeah?
True.
Daily practice. Whenever you're meditating, kettle dancing, whatever you're doing, any spare moment, just take that time, that moment to say, you know what, I want to celebrate my changes of being. Yeah. Get into the habit of doing that. When we do this becomes a default habit, and it actually leads to us changing even more, because the body now says, oh, I like this. I'm getting rewarded for change. And now you start to shift into focusing on change, where our default has been to be focused on where we are at. Sameness, in other words, self-definition, rather than exploring, growing, changing. And when we get comfortable and enjoy and celebrate changing, it's a profound thing. And you have been doing this. Why I mention it, you've been mentioning it in many ways on a regular basis. And I just wanted to bring this front and center again, so that it stays in the front and center. Yeah. I mean, I enjoy your changes every time we see you,
Wow.
And you're getting younger. I'm not joking. Beena, does Erica Jane not look considerably younger today?
Yes. It's a change.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Benjamin Button.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that a purity and a grace that's coming through. It's just fantastic. It's really marvelous. I mean, again, you see how it is that people's kind of stuff gets etched into them as time goes by.
Mhm.
But if you unhook from that nonsense early, you don't have to put that into you.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
Again, another reason to celebrate change, just to be aware of, hey, what am I putting into my face? So. Yeah, see, learn the hard way.
Um,
Rough lessons, rough lessons.
you are goofy.
Yeah, I know, but you know what? Yeah. So, but it is interesting though, and again too, just on a little extras, complete sideways jump the ship point. I always notice by paying attention to people's faces, their faces usually tell about their history, their
Mm,
past, and their voices usually say where they're at, or even you can get an idea of where they're going. I find it very fascinating. Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. So I try not to pay too much attention to how people look. I
mm-hmm.
rather listen. I hear a lot more from how they say, because
Right.
again, your face doesn't change all that much. It usually reacts to extreme emotion, but our voices, they carry nuance.
True.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. All right,
Right.
all right. Where we at? Where we at? I keep getting digressed, but man, it's been so long since we chatted, and I'd like to just connect all the stuff. So,
Absolutely. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, yeah. So at some point, you're gonna come make some time and read Sophie with us. Just
Okay.
come hang out while we read Sophie. It'll be very cool. But we'll get to reading books and stories, in as we go through. Yes, we're doing it now, I mean, in one way, but it's, PSP is a book, but it's not a story. We
Mhm.
will be getting to books that are stories, and then, yes, they have mourners, but it's very fun to do. So we will get there, so no worries. I'm looking
But
forward
by
to
the way, just to be correct and accurate, Erica, we are not reading a story. We are just getting cue from the story.
right,
We're just
exactly.
getting cues from the story. Actually, it is not reading a story at all, because it's been
Yeah,
15 days
yeah,
now,
yeah, yeah.
and we are spending hours on that, and we are still on page 160.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Out of
Ooh.
500, they're very short pages. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, like we were like 20% into the book. Yeah, yeah. It's very cool. Like sometimes she'll like Beena will read a sentence like and then she'll read it. And it's like 2, 3 words, and then it's fun.
Oh,
It's fun though. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun. Mournus, Mournus, Mournus. Very fun. Very
absolutely.
fun. Fantastic.
By
Okay.
the way, just to add one more term in that I read, sorry, Erica, we talk about moreness all the time, and I just read the term I amness,
Mm.
which
Oh,
is really interesting for me.
I
Yes,
like that. I like that. Yamness.
I amness, not
Yeah,
yamness.
yeah. I like Yamnus better. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very cool.
Mhm.
Very cool. Yeah, so
Okay,
I like
sorry,
the I
please continue.
Yamnus. I
No,
like
no.
the Yamnus.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to make a real point about celebrating the self. This is very important, Erica Jane, especially for those of us that have such a strong conditioned fear of egotism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we have this default innateness that we can't celebrate. We can't. No. And so we do need to learn to celebrate ourselves. Of course, when we combine it with impeccability, we can't possibly do it in a nonsensical way. We can
Right.
just be self-honest, but we can. There is a lot to celebrate ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
about ourselves. And this is something that I'm really keen to see in you, to really celebrate yourself, because
Mm-hmm.
there's so much there to celebrate, right?
I appreciate
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Very important. Very important. Very important. Right, Beena? Would you agree? Yeah. I mean, for all Beena's flaws and faults and stuff, Beena really does celebrate her magic. I'm just teasing Beena. You know I am. But you really do. You really do celebrate.
See, see,
Really
see,
do celebrate.
Erica, another tool. Just don't respond,
Ah,
and
I
it
like
falls back.
You really do celebrate your magic. It's very cool. It's
Actually,
very cool. And I'm
yes.
really hearing it from Donna more too. It's really celebrating herself. So, as an active, deliberate thing, it's incredibly powerful.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
I like that.
yeah. Incredibly powerful. Yeah, yeah.
I added, I don't remember if I told you all, I have been trying to do yoga every day. I've kind of held it doing it every day, but I started
video, or we don't believe it, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I started
it's an old gaming thing. They say, screenshot or we don't believe it.
Right,
so.
picture, I don't believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I started writing down questions when I first started doing it again that I go over sometimes right before, sometimes right after. And one of them is, what can I appreciate about myself in this moment? So I have different answers every day, but it's been that's been a good.
Oh, fantastic. There's the self-celebration. Yeah,
that's been a good
Do you carry it through the day?
It depends on when I do the yoga. I don't always do it first thing in the morning, but usually, yeah.
Okay. Are you doing yoga you're watching a video, a book, any particular style, practice of yoga?
Videos, yeah.
Okay. I mean, do they have, are they just showing the exercises, or they do bring a bit of the philosophy into it?
No, they bring the
okay, good. So they are bringing in things like the particular pose is a representation of a particular attitude and a mood. All right, fantastic. Okay. Because a lot of yoga has become just exercise.
Right. No,
but it is. So this standing is an implementation of kind of the entirety of the yoga in just the one thing.
Right.
But because standing is so particularly figurative, and it does involve the capital B balance and all sorts of things, it encapsulates all of that, and it is a really fantastic self-awareness, understanding exercise. But it is also a continuity. It's not just the same thing. It builds, it expands. That's why the notes are so important to do, just to relate right down your experience after you've done it. And then it will, as we go through those, it's going to lead to this massive explosion. I mean, we can almost do, it can be a whole thing just on its own. I could probably make a whole transformative course just through this.
Right.
Yeah. Leads to everything. So, yeah, very cool, very cool. What's the name of the yoga that you do, by the way?
It's Yoga with Adrienne. I've done videos for the last few years. I kind of go off and on, but she is really good, and she generally sometimes she states it as an intent in the video, but she always sets some kind of intent for every session.
Fantastic.
So come back to that. No, he is doing his own stretching exercises because he says that he's like incredibly inflexible, and he has to start. He started with these videos that are actually yoga moves, but it's like at a very slowed down pace.
Yeah, I was thinking because my fitness has gone south really big time, and I need to get it back. So I was thinking of starting to do some exercises, but I don't really care for it much. But there's no appeal, and I've never liked doing it all my life. Never cared much for it. It's like ugh. However, I thought I want to combine Tai Chi and like physical exercise, like kind of Tai Chi push-ups.
Right.
I don't know why. That somehow appeals to me.
Right.
To like really do it slowly. And I can do one push-up and that's enough.
Right.
That slowness, and the same thing with sit-ups. I don't know why that appeals to me.
Right.
Even like doing weights, even when it's fast, no good, but do it slowly. That somehow is very appealing to me, and I have no idea why. So it's kind of yoga, and yoga, but with movement.
Right.
It's the stretch and the physical exertion, but slowly. So yoga, Tai Chi, exercise. I don't know. I'll have to work on it a little bit. But we talked about this anyway. It's something that I will work on doing. So
yeah. It was funny, Joe and I were talking yesterday, I think, about he was saying how he really doesn't enjoy stretching, that it is
interesting
him because he's so tight. And he really likes exercising, but he doesn't like stretching. And I said, I'm the exact opposite. I don't like exercising at all, but I love stretching. And so we were comparing notes. And I was thinking yesterday, I set an intent this week to let go of inappropriate attachment.
Yes.
In whatever form that comes out.
Yes.
And one of the things I was thinking about when I was doing yoga the last time was, it reminded me of the conversation on Friday with Donna talking about vacuuming and like associating when she's vacuuming, she associates different things that she thinks is sort of getting rid of. And I'm thinking about when you're doing different stretches in yoga or otherwise, to think about the tension, like kind of visualize the tension that you have as something that you're letting go of. As I'm stretching, and I feel this, tension, that's me letting go of whatever. So,
in other words, when we start to do this deliberately, and we have beginning of way of impeccability, clarity of intent. When we have clarity of intent, I don't care what you're doing, it's transformative. So big, it's like this, especially when we add on superlative intents of abstract moreness, the simplest thing becomes profound. Yeah. So I maybe have a tip, maybe it will help Joe. When doing stretching, don't think of the stretch as like, okay, you stretch and you in the stretch. To shift it to a gradual stretch. And so you know, wherever you're stretching your particular muscle, all right, so let's say you're going to this point and there it starts to get uncomfortable, right? At the point where it starts to be uncomfortable, this is where you now kind of, you pause, you don't go past that point. And you just hold that right on the cusp of where it's uncomfortable in the muscle. And now you shift not to stretching, but to relaxing. So now you relax into the tiny bit of tension that you feel. And as you're putting your intent into relaxing that, the bit of awkward, uncomfortable tension, boy, does this then transform that tension. And very soon as you relax, you see suddenly you're able to stretch much further than you otherwise ordinarily would be, because otherwise you're stretching into the tension, and because it's unpleasant, you tighten up and you just aggravate the whole thing, and it's counterproductive, and it becomes a miserable affair. Once you develop this ability to relax into the tension, because it's very minimal and it's not unpleasant, now that relaxation is a most delicious feeling, and stretching becomes a joy. It's quite profound. It's a really big deal. So that might help him with the stretching.
Right.
Yeah. And by the way, I am peculiarly flexible.
Really? I am not.
Yeah. I mean, and pretty much everything except, I can touch my toes, and if I'm work at a little bit, I can put my hands flat. That's the only thing where I have to kind of work at my pretty much everything else, I'm pretty flexible. So,
wow.
Like in golf, like a backswing, I can pretty much almost go like 360 around. So yeah.
Wow.
It's just an oddity. Who knows why? I don't know. So
yeah, I have never
peculiarly flexible. Yeah. Interesting. And you do like stretching, so try that yourself with the relaxing into the stretch in that same way. But again, most people who stretch regularly, they've become used to the sort of the pain of the stretch, and they endure it and they stretch it out. But if we do this a little bit more strategically and work with the body rather than against it, you actually end up with profound stretches. And I did notice something else, that I did this with my calves, as I would have a perpetual knot inside that calf. It would just be kind of painful there even. And through really focusing on this, I got that knot to let go. And now in my majority of my day, it's not there. And that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a very big deal. So, it's actually, it undid something that was a perpetual thing. But again, we've got to work with the system, not against it. So very cool. Very cool. Okay, very exciting. Where were we?
Okay, so we went through the last of 7 over Zoom last time. So
yeah,
module 8.
And we finished all the tasks of 7?
Yep, I think so.
Okay.
Module 8 is well, wait a minute. Did I not write that down? No, there it is. Distorted beliefs and delusions.
Yeah.
And
Hang on a second. That's part 3.
part 3?
That's module 8, part 3. Module 8 has got 3 parts to it.
Well, is that not the title of module 8 in general?
No.
Oh.
Sorry. Right. So module 8 has got part 1, part 2, part 3.
Yeah, but the name of module 8 says distorted beliefs and delusions.
Oh, the whole thing? Wait.
Yeah.
Oh. All right. Hang on. Let me go look here quickly. Maybe I've got something muddled here. Let me just check. Okay.
At least
I see. I understand. Never mind. It's just me. It's me. Yeah. So all 3 parts have that same title. Yeah. The whole module 8. Yeah. Oh man, sometimes my poor brain. Sorry, brain. Sorry.
I can't imagine how you can't remember every title of all of these. There's about 1 million of them.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yes. Yeah. No, I misunderstood my own logic in what it went to. So yeah, that's why I said sorry, brain. Yeah.
So distorted beliefs and delusions is module 8. And session 1 is distorted self-belief. And I had a note here that the audio on the intro slide, the audio on the intro slide, there were 2 different audios applied.
Yes, I think I fixed that.
Okay.
I think I fixed that. Yes, thank you.
Good deal. And so my repeat back / takeaway from this session was BMNs take the adage, quote, all you need is to believe in yourself, end quote, quite literally. Yeah. They believe they need no actual skills, talents, knowledge, etc. to achieve success. Yeah. All they need is their belief that they have what it takes and to convince others that they have it too.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is. It is really.
I don't ever want to lose my fascination for such things.
Mm-hmm. It is. BMN logic is definitely fascinating, if nothing else.
But I mean, I'm rather fascinated than horrified.
Right.
Yeah. And I have been enjoying this, by the way, just since we're into self-appreciation today. I have been enjoying this side of you. You have been focusing on the fascinating side of things and not on the stress and the bother and the sadness of it. No, it is, because it is fascinating. It is. And amusing too.
It is. It's true.
Really cool, Erica. Really cool.
Really fascinating to me of how, just thinking back to how did they get there and how did they come to this conclusion is really interesting.
Yes, exactly. But what this does for us, just in terms of relating to the world as a whole, it is absolutely transformative. We've gone from that default of seeing everything as weird or bothersome or stressful or creepy.
Right.
It comes from the book. Sophie defaults to saying, "Oh, it's creepy," or a friend. It's like, come on, why does it have to default to be creepy? Why can't it be fascinating or exciting or interesting? And it's a big shift. It's a big shift because it's not a societal default. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, session 2 is called Tricks. This one was an interesting one. My repeat back here was
cool.
BMNs are constantly on the hunt for the, quote, magic diet pills of life.
I like that. Oh, brilliant. Yes. Thank you. I wish I'd put that in.
I can't remember the name of the one that was always on all the TV commercials like 10 or 15 years ago. It was like Hydroxycut or something.
Wow.
And, that was like, it was like this is the magic pill that you don't have to do any work. You don't have to change your eating. You don't have to exercise. You don't have to change anything. Just take this pill and it's going to like magically transform you into this thin whatever. And I thought that was the most ridiculous thing.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Put that quote into chat, please, Erica. I want to add it, but I'm not in that session right now, so I have to go there. So and then we can continue while I do that.
So okay, so
I love that.
BMNs are constantly on the hunt for the magic diet pills of life. They are looking for the results without having to put in any of the work. While others employ tricks as self-leveraging tools, which enhance the real effort and work they've put toward improvement, BMNs and BSers try to make the trick alone provide all the gains without a foundation of previous work.
Yes. By the way, have you seen that movie? Are we talking about the movie yet, or does it come a little later?
That was this module. I don't think I have. I don't think I've seen the movie.
Okay.
It was really interesting seeing all of the takeaways from it. So I'll have to watch.
Yeah. It is worth watching. Like I say, it's a decent enough movie on its own. Right. But in the context of watching it through this lens, it will be particularly fun. So if you get a chance, watch it with Joe.
I need to.
Please. I mean, it should be easy enough to find. You'd think so.
Yeah, it sounds like a very interesting movie.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, I enjoyed the movie, and I actually did rewatch it too when I was doing the course, not the book. When I was doing the course, so because I think I watched it when I was doing but I remembered it from way back when, as being the folly when I very first saw it, long time ago. So it was fun rewatching it. It definitely was.
Yeah. I like it.
You put that in chat, right?
I did.
Yeah. So just real quick here, you had that came up on at session 2, no?
Session 2, tricks.
Okay. Oh, under tricks. Right. Of course. Yeah. These are so short sometimes that it's like you go quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice. Tricks. Well, I like the quote, by the way. Shortcuts are shortcuts based on nothing but shortcuts to nowhere. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that is a good one. I liked the end of that session. There's an irony to the movie being called Over the Top.
Yes. Yeah. And when you watch the movie, that's going to be really amusing too.
Right.
And to continue that, what you're saying is this is precisely the definition of BSs. But this movie, exactly. They are over the top. Yeah, when we really watch this now, see, I'm making a big point here. But this movie is by no means responsible for the BS mindset. These myths and similar are common, not only in Hollywood, but in popular culture throughout the ages. So this is very important. Hollywood is so powerful for setting the parameters of being for so many people. And they don't even realize how they're doing it. Or I think maybe actually I've come to think that, people like Spielberg are ridiculously cynical and manipulative. I've got to believe he knows exactly what he's doing and how he exploits and manipulates, various tropes and memes and stereotypes and stuff. He knows what he's doing. So
I think something that I have thought about a lot over the sort of throughout the years has been about a lot Disney in particular, because of its effect on, because of its audience being typically young people, but we see it throughout adult movies as well. The perpetuation of successful relationships between two people being these like fairy tale type of things where it doesn't, two people who may be completely unlikely partners regardless of all of the signs that, you know, red flags and things that are saying, right.
So magic pill relationships.
Yes. I mean, and I think that a lot of kids, I mean, that's like your idea of what a relationship is supposed to look like, right? Is like perfect partnership, the prince and the princess and, you know, whatever. I mean, it is a really unhealthy
What's it? Who did Donkey marry? Didn't Donkey have some really in the Shrek movies? Donkey had some.
The dragon.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So, interesting. That's an interesting observation. That's very interesting. That's very, very interesting. Huh.
And I mean, I think so. I'm trying to think if there are any Disney movies where in the end the person comes to the conclusion, you know, I don't actually need to be with anyone. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
any movie that's like, no, you know what? I'm good right now. I'm good on my own. Like, I don't actually need a relationship.
I don't think so. I've never known that. That's a very interesting observation. Very interesting thought. Wow. Huh. That's quite something to think about. Yeah. But again, you know, they sell stuff, and that's what they do. They're selling, and when we realize that they are selling, it's quite revealing, you know, that they're always selling. Dang nabbit, your coat just won't fit in any of the spaces here.
No, that's not good.
Well, I'll show you what I mean. You see? I'm gonna have to make it a bit smaller to fit, but it didn't fit in there either. And there it looks kind of, you know, lame. It fits there, but it's too, you know, it's not a bright spot. So, you know, so, all right. I do want to put it on here. I mean, this must go to the bottom then. But anyway, so I thought Froggy is saying, oh, Erica, you broke my heart now. I'm devastated. Come on. I've been waiting my whole life for that magic pill kiss. You know, it's like, oh, you just destroyed me, Erica. You just destroyed me. So. You big meanie, Erica, you big meanie. Poor Froggy. So that was appropriate for this now. And he does look a bit forlorn, doesn't he?
A little. He looks wet, certainly. He looks kind of pissed off that it's raining.
Yeah. Maybe the Froggy's a she, and she's saying, if I get kissed by a prince, do I turn into a princess?
Mm-hmm.
We never hear that, right?
That's true. Although that was kind of Shrek. I mean, you know.
Oh, okay.
Shrek, whatever her name was, it Fiona?
I don't know.
I can't remember, but the princess turned into an ogre, and she had to be kissed to turn back.
Right. I watched it very briefly and not too long, so I'm not really that glued into Shrek.
I love the Shrek. Yeah, I love the Shrek movie.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so I'm not an expert on Shrek. All right. Okay. There we go. All right. That'll have to do. That works.
Looks good.
Very cool. All right. I love this. I really love it to add, you know, things like this to the program. It really gives me great joy, Erica. It's very cool. It's very cool. Yeah.
Okay.
I put it right at the end of session 2, before the tasks. So so it's not underneath, you know, sometimes put them under, but this one is the full scheme of it. Yeah.
I like it.
Yes.
Okay. So session 3 is anti-smarts, and this one was really interesting. I have a note about why it was so interesting after my takeaway, but my repeat back was, because BSers and BMNs prefer to take shortcuts rather than putting in any actual work, one idea they love to perpetuate is that smarts don't matter. This excuses any lack of effort or performance on their part when it comes to learning and improving. And the note I made was, this this session was so interesting, specifically calling out like the last slide. Yes, there's especially like anti-intellectual myths, or the myth that smarts don't matter. They're too lazy to make any effort to acquire any real abilities and competence and want to cheat their way to everything. So these myths are convenient to them, especially since they know how far behind they really are. It was so funny because, and I said this to Mom, I talked about this with Mom. Phil used to make this huge deal about this kind of stuff. I mean, this is like right up Phil's tree.
Wow. Wow.
He did not graduate high school. He dropped out of school when he was 16, and he moved. He had a not great home life. Yeah. And so he moved to Oklahoma. He grew up in Michigan. And at that point, his older brother had moved to Oklahoma. And so Phil dropped out of high school and moved to Oklahoma to live with his older brother and start working. And it's so funny because he had, as far as I was concerned, a very viable reason for leaving home, for leaving school.
Right.
Like he was as far as I know, it wasn't like he was just completely incapable of performing well at school. He had a legitimate reason for doing this, but he was incredibly like self-conscious and insecure about not having graduated from high school. And he made this huge deal anytime anyone would listen about how school, it wasn't necessary. And look at how successful he was, having been, on his own since he was 16 or whatever. Oh, you didn't need to do it, and you didn't need to go to college. College was a waste of time, and blah blah whatever. And Mom has a master's degree, right? She went all the way through. And it was very obvious to me that made him very insecure, specifically that she was so much more educated than he was. So he would constantly do whatever he could to downplay, like, oh, that doesn't even matter. Look at me, look at how successful I am. Like only chumps go to college, whatever. So this was a really interesting one because it reminded me so much of that dynamic. And she told me that they went to several different marriage counselors throughout their relationship.
Oh, interesting.
One of them told her that it was very obvious that he thought that she was a lot smarter than him. And she was like, really? He's always talking about how good I am and whatever. And they're like, exactly. Like, that's your clue, because he feels very intimidated by how smart you are and how educated you are. And so he's doing everything he can to tear that down and make you feel insecure about it.
Now, interestingly enough, with Phil at school, it's not necessarily that he lacked the actual ability to do well at school, but because they equate learning with being stupid. And to acknowledge this. So, and also because all the energy goes towards their image and their facade, that they actually get behind very quickly. And especially in, the American schooling system, you just get moved along whether you learn stuff or not. So as you get a little higher, in the school, then it becomes more apparent how much you've been coasting on your image and not in the actuality. So they find themselves, despite actually having the ability, right, actually being unable to implement and do the schoolwork, and they feel very, very stupid as a result.
Right. It's water. It's not anything that he's like fascinated by my water cup. You don't.
Oh, interesting. Wow. Yeah.
My. Getting hair in it, but
bloody hell, Bandit! Come on now. Dang, have it. Yeah, that reminds me. I'm gonna make some lemon tea.
Oh, okay.
It's hot lemonade, really.
Right.
Yeah. That's all. I mean, I take lemon juice, a big bottle of lemon juice, 2 teaspoons, sugar, hot water. Here you go, bingo.
Oh,
Very, very simple, but very effective. Yeah.
my
So,
grandma used to make drinks like that. Yeah.
yeah. Works like a charm for me. So,
You put a
very
little
cool.
bit of honey, a little bit of honey in it.
Yeah, it's English call it a hot toddy.
Yeah.
With the honey, and then actually they add a little tweak of brandy in there also.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Yep.
Okay.
Listening.
All right. So.
And by the way, there's no rescuing ice cream that's fallen on carpet. Damn it.
Oh no.
I was scooping ice cream and it was on the side and it was kind of hard, and then I had leverage and then it broke free really quickly and it like flipped the whole big nice scoop of ice cream onto the carpet. Yeah, it's very devastating. It's tragic stuff.
Oh
Tragic stuff.
no.
Yeah.
Okay, so session 4 is myths of convenience. And I had 2 repeat backs from this one. The first is BSers and BMNs often push conflicting myths. On the one hand, spreading anti-smarts myths, while on the other, constantly attempting to prove how smart they are.
Yes, Paul.
It's not supposed to make sense. They're simply pushing whatever stance they perceive benefits them the most in any given situation.
Yes.
And then the second was movies and television often skip over important or obvious details for the sake of making a good story. This works in these cases because the story, characters, and reality in movies isn't real, and we allow it for the sake of entertainment. But B-men's and BSers regularly attempt to make these logical fallacies a reality in their personal lives.
Yes. This really fascinates me how they try to apply movie logic in real life. It's unbelievable how hard they work at it too.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting.
Goofs, as you say.
Absolutely. And then I just realized that I didn't do a repeat back or takeaway for module or session 5 since I just read it last night.
Horrors beyond horrors.
So I'll have to add one now.
I like that. Yeah, Horrors Beyond Horrors it comes from Alice in Wonderland, by the way.
Oh, I like it.
Horrors Beyond Horrors, said Alice, quite forgetting her grammar. Anyway,
hated that movie when I was a kid.
Wow. Well, I just remember it from the book, not the movie, but okay.
I never read the book, but I hated the movie.
Interesting.
It freaked me out. I was like, no.
I'm curious which version it is. I don't think I've ever really seen an Alice in Wonderland movie.
I watched the Disney one.
Oh, wow.
Whoever did the cartoon one.
Interesting. So it was a cartoon, the Alice, that you didn't like. That is most fascinating. And that's interesting, they remake Disney movies and they remake them very regularly. I have not seen a remake of the Alice one. Not that I can remember, a modernish version, certainly not in the last 20 years or even 30 years.
Interesting. Yeah, no, there has been one because Johnny Depp played
the Mad Hatter.
Yeah, the Mad Hatter. And then
you're right. I do remember this now, but it is still a while back, though. Yeah, okay, so they have done it.
Lestrange in.
Yeah, but it's a creepy one. You're right. It is a creepy one.
They're all creepy. The story is creepy to me. It's just it's a bizarre, really.
But it needn't be. It needn't be, but it can be. Especially if you kind of almost a little bit of psychedelics involved in it. With a toad on. Anyway, but it needn't be. It can be a magical story, but it does need the right treatment. Certainly in the book you don't get that creepy feel. You get Alice's sense of wonder and innocence in it, in the book story. So yeah.
Right.
All right. We're gonna hear the takeaway live. Ooh, I like this.
Oh, okay. I've got to look through my notes here again and remember.
Do you want me to put it up on screen, the session, or no?
I have it. I have
the
things right here. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I remember when I was reading this quote, at the very end of this session, you have a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. If I have the belief that I can do it, I shall surely acquire the capacity to do it, even if I may not have it at the beginning. And it made me curious, given the whole concept of this particular module, if this was one of those quotes that you often talk about from people who are very famous and generally considered really smart, and you think it's like a really idiotic quote.
So what do you think I think?
So what do I think you think? I think, yes, I think this was an example of sort of nincompoopry. Personally, I actually happen to agree with this quote.
Yeah, I did too, actually. And I'll put it in as a genuine quote.
Okay, well, because I was thinking that because, you know, the whole thing is about if all you have is your belief in yourself and you can do anything. That's what BMNs do. So I was like, I wonder if this is one of those that he thinks.
And it's a fair point that you say, to think that, you know, but I did like that it so brings into being so much moreness in the whole thing, because you know, in the beginning it says, you know, if all you have is belief in yourself, it's that's the problem. Now, Gandhi's not saying the all here. You know, he is very clearly saying that if you start with this, by implication, if you do and apply, you actually end up acquiring what you start with. So it's a sophisticated quote of an appropriate application of belief. So exactly what you took out of it is the intent behind the quote.
Okay.
But I have few attributed quotes, actually. I don't know if you notice. I'm just generally not a fan of them, so it does stand out simply because of that. But I can't remember how come I came upon it. I'm just an attunement thing, because I never really looked for quotes because I have so many.
Right.
You know, so it's just one of those things that, I happen to notice it. All right, cool. I'll use it. It really came completely via attunement, so it's very cool. I like when that happens. So. But no, it is definitely a nuanced thing here, that quote, to say, no, you can actually, you know, use this positively, but there is not a little, but there's quite a lot that you need to do in order to make it happen.
Right. True.
Right. But I like the idea that you thought I put it in as a nincompoopy quote.
I read it and I was like, interesting. So, okay, I remember reading this last night, that one of the, a little sour.
It's okay, it's nice.
One of the things that really stood out to me here was that, and I think I put this in a takeaway at when I've jumped around on this so much. I started module 8 and then realized that I had skipped a bunch of questions on module 7, so I went back and and I'm like trying to remember what I did. But I think on one of my task answers somewhere, I was talking about how one of the interesting things that happens a lot with movies, I think, is that a character, it doesn't matter how awful a particular character is. Like, for me, perfect example of this, and it honestly disturbs me how many people, I mean, like, it legitimately disturbs me how many people have become like obsessed with this show and this character. The Netflix show You, have you heard of this?
No. YOU?
Yes, it is huge. It got, like, I think at the beginning of this year, maybe the end of last year, kind of right before the pandemic, it became this huge thing. Everybody I knew was talking about it. Oh my gosh, this is so good. And so Joe and I started watching it, and it's, so I think a trick that Hollywood uses is they always, if the character that, you know, if the character has some really disturbing qualities about them. They just make that person the main character so that the story is told from their point of view. And then you start to sympathize with them, right? You're like, oh, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. So this whole series
isn't that fascinating?
Yes, it's
again,
really fascinating.
You know, sorry, I just wanted to say, perspective shifting can also change our morality.
Right, absolutely.
Go on.
So this whole series is based around this male character who is set up in the beginning to be this very kind of unseemly, like, he's sort of the guy, the kind of uncool guy that doesn't have a lot of friends, and he works in this bookstore. You know, he's kind of he comes from what you assume are sort of meager means. You know, he's not flashy, he's not rich, he's not powerful, he's not particularly successful, and he's this very
banal.
Yeah, he's this kind of sweet, sort of unbecoming person. And, you know, he tries to go out on dates with people, and the girls are like, no, you know, you're too nice, or you're too quiet, or whatever. And this woman comes into the bookstore, and he's like just totally taken with her. He thinks she's amazing. And they start, you know, exchanging information, and starts setting up this whole plot, and it's like, oh, you know, look at how sweet this is so exciting, good for him. And then as the story goes along, you start to discover that he is actually completely psychotic, and he is like obsessed with this woman, and orchestrates every minute detail of their relationship. Like, he makes it so that they accidentally bump into each other in these different places.
Creepy. That's creepy, Beena.
No, it gets way worse. He breaks into her home on multiple occasions and like spies on her while she's sleeping. He ends up killing her boyfriend so that the two of them can be together.
Wow.
Later on in the series, he ends up killing her best friend because her best friend starts to suspect that something has happened. He traps these people in the basement of the bookstore in this like glass cage. As it escalates further and further, it just gets more and more disturbing. And we reached a point where he starts to go kill someone else. And I said, I cannot watch this anymore. This is not entertaining to me. This is disturbing. But what is really disturbing to me is the amount of people who, the guy who plays this character is an attractive person, right? So all of these women, a lot of them my age, are like, oh, they're just like so taken with this character, and they're like, you can trap me in your basement any day.
I can't stand that nonsense.
No, you are literally like legitimizing murdering and stalking people.
Good for you, Erica.
No, this is not okay. So to me, that whole aspect of Hollywood taking actions that are completely not okay and making you sympathize with this character to the point that you're like, no, it's okay, like, I'll excuse it. That is really disturbing to me. And
it is a very disturbing trend also.
And that was in this
very disturbing.
In this session, it was talking about where was that? The hero isn't above bending morality nor ethics when needed, like when he hustles another arm wrestler into a bet. The hero needs to be relatable. The great crime Hollywood perpetuates, where they legitimize and condone otherwise objectionable behavior. That made me think a lot about that particular series. I mean, it is really interesting how much we, as you said, our morality changes based on our point of view. You know, it's really interesting.
And our perspective and our habits, our comfort zone, and disturbingly, our convenience.
Right.
Yeah. So when we start to really look, and that's what you're doing. You aren't just going by convenience or the the default that you're being pulled into. You aren't just going along with it. You actually applying some real objective discernment and discrimination here. You're saying, no, 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 wait a second. When we actually look at this thing for what it actually is, it's a whole different deal. But you zooming out now. They're getting caught up in immersion bubbles, right?
Right.
Yeah. With really disastrous and horrendous consequences.
Well, and I think that's what's kind of fascinating to me is I think every once in a while I would see someone comment like, I can't believe that people like this series, this is really problematic and whatever. And basically everybody would always jump all over those comments with, don't take this so seriously, it's just TV, it's not like we're talking about someone who actually committed these crimes or whatever, don't just like stop being so serious about this. And for me, it is serious because when you start making those concessions in your own mind, even when it's something that isn't real in your specific reality, it's still opening a crack there for, well, I made an exception in this case. And so, I do think it's serious.
Exactly. It is, because it's the slippery slope of flexible morality.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't necessarily want to be rigid either, as appropriate. But when we do look at this in the context of appropriateness, you are saying you are deliberately familiarizing yourself and making yourself okay with what you do not wish to be okay with.
Right.
So, this is not cool. And from an intent point of view, this is very dangerous.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Very true.
I love it. Love it. Good for you, Erica.
It is a really interesting, it's an interesting series, but it is frightening how many people are like, it's
all right,
fine.
so then I'm not going to watch it then.
I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah. It is interesting. I'm sure that there are probably some interesting lessons that can be gleaned from it, but it's kind of strange. Okay, so the exercises for these sessions.
Now, it is interesting though to watch these shows from the context of what is the writer thinking, what is the writer thinking that the public will like, and using that to extrapolate and say, wow, this is very revealing. And particularly if it's a popular show that is being liked, we get an insight into popular psychology. So very useful. So I watch TV very differently. I get a lot out of stuff. But also, when people are just exploiting, because that sounds very exploitative to me. They are just exploiting something for the shock value purpose and for all this. And again, now you're leveraging this guy's good looks into this, and personally, I'm sorry, but it's not that good-looking people can't be evil. But generally, people that are up to no good, if you really look at them, you kind of see stuff. I really make an effort to watch when they have the shows on the real criminals, when they actually interview them, to really study them. And it's amazing what you see. It's really quite intriguing.
Yeah.
So I've yet to see one of them that was very handsome, by the way.
Interesting. Who was the guy? Who was it? Like a really famous serial killer. And he was actually on a dating show.
He started off. I think I remember now. I don't know the name, but I have a feeling. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look it up.
So there was an exception then. Yeah.
I remember seeing that, and that was so fascinating.
Oh, but he was creepy on that dating show.
They were all kind of creepy, but it was.
But I remember the dating show thing. I remember they had it where they had like a divider, a room divider, and then the person was on one side and he was kind of on the other side. Is that the one I'm thinking of? Okay, yeah.
Rodney Alcala.
Oh, wow. Oh, you'll have to screen share to show picture here now.
Yeah, this is so funny. So I looked up serial killer on TV show, and Rodney Alcala was what came up, but one of the suggestions said popular shows with serial killers. You popped up.
Wow. No. Actual serial killer on TV. Yeah.
Yeah, Rodney Alcala.
Is that him? Is that you remember it?
Yeah, that's who it was. Yeah,
I don't remember the name.
Um,
It's a Native American name, yeah, since we were talking about it.
Rodney James Alcala is an American convicted rapist and serial killer who was sentenced to death in California for 5 murders committed in that state between 1977 and 1979. And he was on The Dating Game.
Yeah,
in the middle, in the midst of his murder spree.
Wow.
So he was on The Dating Game in 1978. So right in the middle of when he was killing these women.
Wow. Can you show us pictures of what he looked like on The Dating Game?
Yeah. Here, I'll pull up this video.
From Hollywood, The Dating Game.
Word.
Okay. Screen share.
Yep. Whoops. There we go.
Of the world, it's The Dating Game. Here's the star of our show, your host, Jim Black.
He was actually the winner of it too.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And welcome to The Dating Game. And we'll get right underway. It's fully developed. Between takes, you might find him skydiving or motorcycling. Please welcome Rodney Alcala. Rod, welcome. And it's time to meet our young lady for game number 1. And here she is. Here is a young lady with a wealth of experience. She once earned a living massaging feet, but she quit when her boss suggested that she work her way up. Then she taught school in Phoenix, Arizona, and now she's here to educate our 3 bachelors in the art of amour. Welcome, if you will, sensational Cheryl Bradshaw. Hello, Cheryl. Don't sit down yet. Just a minute. Want to make sure everything is straight. You relaxed? You feel okay? All right. You know there are 3 bachelors over there. There'll be 1, 2, and 3. Ask them anything you like to find out more about them, except their name, age, occupation, or income. Okay? And we're going to start by having them say hello to you and see how they sound. Number 1, would you say hello to Cheryl, please?
We're going to have a great time together, Cheryl.
Okay. And here we go.
Bachelor number 1.
Yes.
What's your best time?
The best time is at night, nighttime.
Why do you say that?
Because that's the only time there is.
The only time? What's wrong with morning, afternoon?
Well, they're okay, but nighttime's when it really gets good. Then you're really ready.
I'm a drama teacher, and I'm going to audition each of you for my private class. Bachelor number 1. You're a dirty old man. Take it.
Oh, come on, over here.
Unbelievable. Wow.
Is this a serious one?
This is a show, yeah.
A bachelor.
Not a comedy one, a serious one.
No. I mean, they are hemming it up a bit, but I mean, you know, it's part of the show.
Called, and what do you look like?
I'm called the Banana, and I look really good.
Can you be a little more descriptive?
Peel me.
Later, Bachelor 1. Later.
Welcome back to The Dating Game. And Cheryl, we have reached the moment of truth, as we call it. You've heard from the bachelors. You got some great dramatic presentations.
Yeah, you asked Bachelor number 1. She's not asking the others.
Will that be Bachelor number 1, Bachelor number 2, or Bachelor number 3? Who gets the dates?
Well, I like bananas, so I'll take 1.
Number 1. Bachelor number 1. All right.
God, there those eyes are.
Here they go. However, you did leave 1 for me. And this is your date, and I want to tell you something about him, Cheryl. He's a skydiver, so he's got a lot of nerve. He's into motorcycling. He's also a fine photographer. Say hello to Rodney Alcala. Rodney, come on and say hello. Congratulations, Rod. You did it with a 1 answer. Well, as far as I can see, Cheryl and Rodney, it looks like the 2 of you may be involved in some sort of racket. So we're going to have you take to the court. Oh, first, you'll receive tennis lessons from expert Naomi Besa of the famous Kirkwood Tennis Club. That starts. And you'll soon be acing everyone off the courts. And to make sure you both look as professional as you'll become, complete tennis outfits will be provided by Bill Darling's Tennis Shop. It'll really make you look like part of the racket set. Then it's off the Magic Mountain, one of America's greatest and most complete amusement parks, with plenty of excitement to challenge any daring digger, like the Revolution that'll help you turn the town upside down, and of course the world's greatest roller coaster, the Colossus. Magic Mountain, just a half an hour north of Hollywood, California. So have fun playing tennis. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you. Okay, you can go relax.
Isn't that interesting?
That's fascinating. I mean, it's scary that, you know, he's not as creepy and as scary as some of the others that I've seen.
Absolutely.
But those eyes of his, they're completely dead. When he's laughing and he's the winner, the eyes are like black pit stones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Very interesting. What did you make of that, Beena? Maybe Beena checked out too creepy. That's the girl was remarkably creepy to me.
That whole show is
And the presenter too is very creepy too. Yeah.
That whole show was weird.
Again, for me, his mouth was very peculiar.
I agree.
The way, yes,
His mouth.
yes, and it seems like a hollow. Like I don't know why it seems like very hollow.
That was what creeped me out with his mouth. Yeah.
Like sort of a vacuum into nowhere, like a portal.
Yes, yes, and also his skin. It's like I don't know why it resembles like lizard or something. I don't know.
Very interesting. Wow, that was fascinating, Erica. Thank you. That was really fascinating. But again, you know, attention to attention. I try not to pay too much attention.
But okay, because we are looking at him with the perspective that he
we
was
know
a serial
already,
killer.
correct. You wanted
yes,
to
so
see
it is a different thing. But anyone can miss out everything about him.
Yeah. That's why we want to be careful and trust without trusting and have all these other strategies in place. And why we absolutely do not pay attention to appearance only. Because BMNs are they're very slick with us, you know. So we want to use all the other things, you know. And again, too, this is where right and wrong and habit come into it. You know, when you do get things that are so the outliers, if you don't have the ability to break outside of your habit, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So very important, very important. Yeah. Wow, very powerful, very powerful.
I said, let's see. I was trying to see what this said because I remember seeing that that they didn't. I don't think they ended up going on any dates, and the woman did not get killed. So I was trying to see.
Good.
What
so they actually didn't. That's. I want to know what happened. Yeah. Thank you.
That's what I was looking for.
Thank you.
Okay, at the end of the game show, Bradshaw picked bachelor number 1, who turned out to be a long-haired man in his mid-30s named Rodney Alcala. But what Bradshaw didn't know was that in 1972, Alcala had been convicted. Wow, at that point, he had been convicted of raping an 8-year-old girl. He was.
And how the hell does he get onto the show?
Exactly. He was paroled after less than 3 years, and by the time Bradshaw met him on the dating game, he had already murdered 4 women. On stage, Alcala didn't seem different from any of the other contestants who had appeared on the game show, but when Bradshaw went backstage with him, she said something changed. Quote, "I started to feel ill. He was acting really creepy. I turned down his offer. I didn't want to see him again."
Good for you, girl.
Yeah,
wow.
Before the show, Alcala had unsettled at least one of the other contestants. Quote, "He was a really creepy guy, a real idiot," said bachelor number 2, actor Jed Mills. "This creep comes up and he puts his face practically in my face and he says, 'I always get the girl.'" Alcala was very upset by Bradshaw's rejection, and authorities believe it motivated him to increase his murder spree between then and his arrest in 1979. Wow, that's amazing.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. Bradshaw told People 3 decades later. I still have a hard time believing it. I could have been one of the dead girls.
Wow.
That is crazy. So apparently she did figure it out and realize something.
Yeah, you know, there's the clues, you know. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Wow, I love that. That's a good ending to that story, at least.
Yeah,
You know,
that's very interesting.
yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, so the exercise for module 8, first question was, how do we deal with overestimation of self? Where may you be overestimating yourself, and how do you balance this with self-trust? And I said, this is an interesting question for me because I think in the past, I have certainly tended to underestimate myself regularly, or at least not outwardly give myself due credit because I didn't want to appear egotistical. I thought about this question for a while and haven't come up with an area where I think I regularly overestimate myself, but I think if I did, this would likely naturally become clear, because if it was truly an overestimation of my knowledge, skills, abilities, etc., I would likely act on my overestimation and experience some kind of reckoning showing me that I overestimated. If I'm paying attention and being honest with myself, I will see that I clearly overestimated and adjust. If, however, I'm being dishonest with myself and in denial of reality, I will make excuses about why things went wrong and why it wasn't my fault. So for me, dealing with overestimation and balancing self-trust relies on a foundation of self-honesty.
Exactly.
And what are you doing, kiddo? Come on.
Yeah, you know, and once we shift into this realm, you know, those days are long past now.
Mm-hmm.
They just can't come up. I mean, how do you suddenly start BSing yourself when you're aware of all of this?
Right.
Yeah? Just not possible.
Very true.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
Very, very true. Okay. Second question was, what are it doesn't really say that in the slides. I just noticed there's 2 R's.
In what?
Let me look. The questions.
What are end sessions 1 to 5?
Yeah, there are. I missed that.
There's an irony.
Darn it.
And
Wait, which one are we in now?
Well,
achieving
I clicked on the wrong thing.
If I have
what else do we need? End sessions 1 to 5.
I was trying to pause the audio and I ended up accidentally clicking back.
And then it gives the double audio. Yeah, it does
Yes.
that.
So on the first slide of questions for sessions 1 through 5 in module 8,
so the
second question has R twice. So it says, what are popular myths?
Oh dear.
I didn't notice that until I was just looking.
And it's the first slide. What are our popular myths of self? Wow. Well, that's no good. That's no good at all. Thank you, Erica. Brilliant.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay, so yeah, we gotta fix that. All right. So I'll fix the audio too.
Okay. So what are popular myths of self commonly propagated in movies? I said one I could think of was completely changing your physical appearance will suddenly make everything go right in your life. I was thinking about movies like, not The Princess Bride. What is the name of that movie? The Princess Diaries.
Yeah. That's a
makeover, and then all of a sudden, like as soon as she's conventionally beautiful, all of a sudden everything goes right. And same thing for oh my gosh, I can't think of any of the names of these movies. There's another movie where the girl, it's like very similar concept. The girl is unpopular. She wears glasses. It's got Freddie Prinze Jr. and somebody else in it. And then by the end, she gets this total makeover, and then she gets the guy and whatever. So that is a common one that I see.
Hollywood is horrible for perpetuating, You know, I mean, really, what is modern day superstition?
Right, right. That's true. And then another one was, you can go from being a terrible person to a righteous person nearly instantaneously. Just make a few quick tweaks or fall in love with the right person.
Yeah, very insightful. Very insightful. Very insightful. So where does Groundhog Day fall into this?
Interesting. So what did I say? So, oh no, I was thinking I had added one that was kind of similar to that, but there was something I was thinking about similar to Groundhog Day where now in that movie though, I think he did actually learn lessons. Like he did actually, learn things.
He did. He updated. He upgraded.
He did.
Yes, he did.
But that was one thing I was thinking about, not necessarily about that movie, but just in general, that it's just kind of like over time, like you can be a horrible person and sort of random events happen and no particular lesson is necessarily learned, but all of a sudden you're just
can magically transform into a nice person.
Yeah, Groundhog Day, he actually learned things.
He did. That's what I like about Groundhog Day. Actually, I find Groundhog Day a very spiritual movie if you really watch it in detail, because I do feel that's kind of what we are doing in life. In at least not feel, but I believe that's one particular perspective that's very handy to look at, to say, you know what, we might be in just a very long version of Groundhog Day. So what is the lesson to learn from Groundhog Day? To say that what do we need to keep tweaking and understand? And essentially the magic of Groundhog Day, it is going from 0 to 100 very quickly. Right? I mean, that's what it is. Look, in the start of that movie, he's just complete and utter, just, jackass. There's no other better word for him, right? And he's just self-centered, he's obnoxious, he's arrogant, he's everything horrible. But he finds in the course of one day to go from his co-worker, who's Andy McDowell, the fabulous Andy McDowell, and, she's wonderful and lovely and just everything, just the complete mismatch, and to actually be a match. He's able to absolutely change her mind about him in the course of one day. Right. And that is really something, and it's very realistically done as this goes about. Right. And it's a profound skill, because it comes into little things too. Never mind just from a lifelong perspective, but in small things. Like, for instance, when I was a kid, and Donna still has this a little bitty, and now it's moving out though. Because of Groundhog Day too, we used an example to say that you can't talk about heavy subjects. That was the word at the time. Oh, it's too heavy, man. That's too heavy. You can't be talking about. It's like, come on, that's too heavy. People don't want to talk about heavy subjects. Now, so as a result now, okay, it was not everybody, of course, and it's overemphasized. But as a result, you grow up and you don't look to have those types of conversations. But you can get into that conversation going from trivial nonsense to very deep, basically really quickly. I've actually learned the skill of almost going there instantaneously now, almost.
That's so funny. I actually, last night, I would shower thoughts. You come up with your best ideas in the shower. I was in the shower and I was
thinking, philosophy.
Yes. I was thinking, I've seen several memes go around over the years of people talking about how they're the kind of person that they don't like small talk. They want to get right to like really deep conversations with people. And I thought, okay, we should have a game, sort of like Cards Against Humanity style, something where you're like drawing cards or whatever. And you play it with people as a way to get to know people better. So it could be people that you think you already know, your spouse or your best friends. It could be people you're just meeting, but it like facilitates these kind of deep, meaningful conversations just basically right off the bat.
Yeah.
And
that's a cool idea.
On each card you have questions. Like one of the things I was thinking of was our discussions about what like, what do you think love actually is? You know, something that's like a really deep question, and you draw this card, and whatever the question is, like, you go into this, you know, deep conversation with all of the people that you're playing the game with.
Excellent.
There are definitely ways to facilitate those kinds of deep conversations, I think.
Yeah. Wow, that's very cool. It's surprising how quickly we can immerse. All it takes really is just the appropriate mindset and cueing, and us being comfortable with it. I find now the reverse. Like, people are like, wow, wow. At first they're like, and then like, wow, that's really cool, and you just go right into it.
Right.
And it's a skill that we can develop.
True.
A definite skill, and also to create. Well, we'll get into it when we do the hearing and helping thing. So yeah, we'll get into this in detail. It's very cool stuff. It's very cool stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Now I have two others, so I'll try to get through those before time. So my other one was, you can be a bad person with awful intents, but as long as you're attractive or have some special talent, people will love you and be on your side anyway. Just like with the you example. That seems to be a very pervasive thing in Hollywood. Yeah. Doesn't matter how terrible of a person the character is, as long as they have some kind of redeeming quality. Usually they're attractive, then it's fine. You know, everything is excused and it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Or they got a, you know, charming or a funny or something like that.
Right. And then this one, I was talking.
Sorry, just to consider the psychology of that. Yeah. So Hollywood says, hey, we need to sell tickets. We don't want to have characters that are so wonderful that nobody can relate to them. And this is this whole relatability nonsense, right? Somebody clicked. I mean, James Bond, who can relate to James Bond, yet he's popular. It's a particularly Hollywood, it's an American thing, this really, right? So they clicked, and it comes, you know, it really started with Stallone, you know, in that era. It became really popular. I mean, there was a little bit of it before, but it really took off there, where they realized, you know what, we can take essentially, I mean, like Stallone and Rambo, they're not the sharpest tacks in the packet, right? So you take somebody who's basically a numbskull, and you give him some one thing that he can do, that's it, and now suddenly he's a hero, right? And even in Rambo, you can just be a complete numbskull, and that's it, you know, but you gotta have skills. But they also, in other movies, and some of the Jim Carrey movies do this as well, they completely glorify being an absolute jackass. Now, the guy in the movie who is a jackass says, that's me.
Right.
And this has led to Trump.
Interesting.
Because Trump is saying, I'm bombastic, I'm a braggart, I'm a liar, and it's cool. Look how successful I am.
Right.
And everybody there, all of his followers, right? What are they saying? That could be me. That could be me.
Right.
See? And how many times haven't they said, oh, you know what? I too could be president. It's not so difficult, you know. I mean, and I too could be successful. I just never had the breaks. I never had the luck and all this, you see. So, yeah. It's this myth that Hollywood, this is the rewards for your nonsense.
Right.
Of you know, legitimizing crappiness in the interest of selling tickets. This whole concept of relatability, it's gone haywire. It's gone to its extreme now. So no. I saw this happen in the politics with George Bush already when he first wore. He was like the first presidential candidate ever to wear jeans.
Interesting.
And it was a big deal. It was like, but it went down really well. Oh, he's so relatable.
Right.
Very powerful. I don't want my chum and my beer bud, you know, my drinking buddy. I don't want him as president, for heaven's sake. You know, just because he's relatable, I'm gonna make him a good president. It's ridiculous logic, you know. Come on, you know. You want the nerdy guy to be the president, you know. Right?
True. That's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah. Amazing business.
Okay, and then my last one was, this was the one I was talking about earlier, not necessarily a myth of self, but something commonly pushed by movies is that no matter how unlikely the circumstances, two people can fall madly in love and stay that way forever. And also that fairy tale love is the ultimate happy ending that everyone should be striving for. That is a big one for sure.
Beena, are you spotting an anomaly in all of this here? A little bit of a conundrum, a little bit of an oxymoron, really.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you know that's got a Hollywood marriage?
We don't though. That's what's
Yeah.
key. I mean,
Well, to me, you have a
yeah,
perfect magical.
but I
That's
mean,
to me my version of Hollywood, right, Beena?
I agree.
Yes, exactly.
I think for me, we have a totally appropriate, perfect relationship for the two of us, but it looks nothing like the
Yes.
Hollywood.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it looks nothing like that. And I think that's what
I
is
mean, for one thing, you're not 10 foot tall,
true.
right?
True.
Yeah. So I tease a little bit because there's in Hollywood they never have these wildly disparaging differences in height between the couples, right? They always magically match up somehow.
But
Although in
there is
real
something.
life they can
Uh-huh.
mismatch. Have you seen pictures of Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise?
Yes.
He
Yeah.
doesn't even come up to her shoulders sometimes when she's got heels on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
They're not anymore together. So
no, he's been with I don't know how many since then already. And it
True.
seems like she was number 2, which a lot of people didn't even realize at the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
but
these are
still,
number 4 or
your
5.
point.
But my
Yes.
point is that
Actually.
Erica has a fantastic magical Hollywood marriage that makes me very happy. By the way, every time makes me very happy. Gives me lots of joy and hope in the world. Very, very, very positively, uplifting to see that. Same with Sue and Bill. Same.
Yeah.
Gives me great joy.
Well, see, I mean, I think to me, these are both examples of really successful, happy relationships that don't look the way Hollywood.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like Hollywood would not say this is the
No.
ideal, whatever. But
Yeah. Now they're gonna say, our focus groups. Nope. But again, I find this really fascinating, how actually out of touch Hollywood is.
yeah,
I find they because I think that their focus groups are obviously comprised of California people.
right.
And okay, not California, but particularly Los Angeles people. And this is not representative. I mean, I've lived there in that area, Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
Santa Monica, and it's a whole different mindset. It's a
Yeah,
different, I mean,
yeah,
it really is different. So I do think that they're in their own little bubble there, and this
right.
doesn't make much sense. So
True.
it does.
That is very true.
All right, brilliant.
Well, all right.
A quick housekeeping thing.
Yeah.
Just my Mr. A to tick it off. I'm assuming that it's not going anywhere in terms of the garage apartment. We never finished that. So.
Oh, no. So we are at this point we are getting the house ready to sell.
Oh, you are good for you. Excellent.
We're not. I mean, we're keeping. We're not like we don't have a place that we think we're going to go at this point, but we're trying to get things kind of together to sell. So we're trying to decide at this point what we're doing with the garage apartment, if we're going to fix it up for mom in case we end up staying here, or if we just leave it the way it is
and sell it like it is.
Start looking for something else. So it's still kind of in flux. This is why we haven't gotten anything done with it so far, because every month or so something changes with it. But at this point, we're still kind of in flux on what's happening.
Oh, dang it.
What happened?
I injured the poor beetle. Oh, this big beetle.
Oh.
And I accidentally squished it. And sorry, beetle.
But
he's been walking around here, and it's like, come on, dude. I move my feet all the time.
True. I always say bugs that deign to enter the home are risking. I mean.
And I put one of them outside, and if the same guy came back in again.
Right.
So I did mention this to Kay, and I mentioned it to you too, to really look at your options from the the Airbnb point of view.
Right.
You can really leverage your assets, particularly the property the way it is. It has the capability. And also I mentioned this to Kay. She's looking at fixing up the place. And I said, there is an option that you can do to really leverage things. And this is to put the house in your name now already.
Right.
And this now, but also under the understanding, of course, she gets rental income and such and such.
Right.
You know, but then you assist her in the little bits of things that she needs to do to fix it up. Now you investing in your own property.
Mm-hmm.
You see? Now, though, if you take the two properties together and you use this from a collateral point of view, now and you can buy a third and keep those as income producing properties.
Right.
Now you suddenly leveraging your assets to the hilt, which is a profoundly magical thing to do.
Right.
And it's not a big stress and strain. You can afford it because they're paying for themselves.
Right.
And now you're essentially getting your third property for free. And
Right.
it's a big
The
deal.
big trouble with doing Airbnb for the whole house is that's generally frowned upon in this neighborhood. There was someone else down the street who had the entire home set up as an Airbnb, and it got taken to, I can't remember who they.
How long ago? Because the laws have changed quite considerably.
Like a year ago.
Oh wow! So it's
it got taken to some board of something or other that ruled, no, you shouldn't have this set up as an Airbnb. And it was part of it being because it's a historical neighborhood. Generally speaking, it's not frowned upon to have the garage, if the people in the home are maintaining that as an Airbnb, that's fine. But generally speaking, having the whole home set up as an Airbnb is usually a no-go. Yeah. But you never know. You never know.
Yeah. It is. I mean, because that, if you can manage to make it happen, oh my goodness, I mean, you just now leveraging your assets, and you in a whole different ball game, because pretty soon you have free and clear assets, and now it's early retirement time. So it's definitely something to really look into very seriously. So
yeah, absolutely.
Very powerful. Absolutely. All right, Magical Erica, fantastic. It's just fantastic fun as always.
Absolutely.
So I'll see you next time. Anything, just anything overcap, thinking about?
I don't know. I'm probably gonna have to digest all of it. But
all right, Joe is good.
Joe's good. Joe is good.
All right. I'll say hi to him. And
I will.
I love it so much. Yeah, it's a lot of power today. A lot of stuff today. So very cool.
Absolutely.
Bye bye, Eric.
All right. Thank you. Bye, Beena.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.